So, hi everyone. This is Finance Meets Real Estate. We have Brian Rehler here today. So he's the founder of Three Pure Investments, and he's also the founder of like an equity futures trading company, right? Like called Trader Shark. So he's going to talk to us today about the real estate side of his experience, specifically with regards to mobile home parks. So the topic is like red lights and green lights of mobile home parks. And so he has been a mortgage broker for over 20 years in Florida, and he's a former U.S. Army helicopter pilot with a broad experience in underwriting single-family homes, apartment complexes, MHP as well. And so with that, I'm going to pass it on to Brian. Like, I'm really interested to hear what he has to say today. Like, we've had one or two people only speak about MHP on this channel, so we haven't had like too much exposure to that, at least myself. So it's a very interesting asset class. I know it used to offer like very high cap rates compared to multifamily. I'm not sure if it's still the case or to how the landscape is looking. I haven't followed it on my end, so I'm very curious to hear about that. And yeah, so with that, I'm going to pass it on to Brian. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them on the chat or just speak up. And this video is going to be on YouTube as well.
Excellent. Is that my introduction?
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me today, Stefan. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to your group. And as Stefan said, I was a U.S. Army helicopter pilot, where I learned a lot of discipline and get the mission accomplished. And then I got back in the United States. I became a mortgage broker down in Orlando, Florida. Had my own business down there. And then, but I've been investing for well over 30 years. So with that, where does it all start? So I've done a lot of over 200 single family homes by myself and with fellow investors. And the multifamily, I have duplexes, quadruplexes, mobile home parks, apartment complexes, things like that. Not a whole lot. I'm not this one over the world guru. I'm just here to kind of say, hey, what are the good parts and what are the bad parts, the red light and the green light of investing in mobile home parks. So the single family homes, I'm going to go there just because you'll understand why the advantages of why I've decided to use the asset class of the mobile home parks. So the single family homes, you can build it from scratch down, ground zero, all the way up into a complete home. And you're going to go to, you got to sell that, and then it's over with, right? You can buy these single family homes and you can rent them out, but then you're repairing toilets and hot water heaters and virtually anything else that goes bad in an apartment complex or a mobile home park, or if you own the homes. The multifamily is great. First off, the single family, if you have a vacancy, now all of a sudden you have a negative asset on a monthly basis. A duplex is great. A quadruplex is better. And you get into 10, 20, 30, and 40, which people are afraid of, it's even better, right? Because you have when you have a vacancy, it doesn't affect your cash flow as much as a vacancy of a duplex or a quadruplex. Now, again, when we get to the apartment complexes, you still have the repairs of the doors and the drawers and the hot water heaters and the cabinets and all that fun kind of stuff, countertops. You get phone calls at all hours of the night, you or your property manager that you've hired. Mobile home parks are a little bit different. They certainly are not all the diamonds and glitter that everybody's, oh, a mobile home park. I mean, like, ew. I mean, they got a bad stigmatism, right? Or stigma with them. Well, when did they become popular? Elvis Presley started buying mobile home parks, right? Remember, a lot of these, the actors, the stars out in Hollywood would buy a mobile home, and they would pull Lucy and Ricardo from I Love Lucy, right? Lucy and Ricky, they bought mobile homes. They haul it behind their cars and things like that. And then back then, what, 50s, 60s, older homes, that's the mobile home parks, but they were just known as like the lower income people were moving into them. Not so these days. I mean, I think mobile home park is going to be, when I'm done, you're going to understand why, it's probably one of the most weather protected assets. In other words, if we're more than likely due for an economic downturn, right? Our stock market's at all-time highs. The houses are increasing by what? Some of them 20 and 30% appreciation. we're due for a little bit of a pullback. I don't know if we're going to get a crash, but we'll have a little bit of a pullback. And when you do have a pullback of those people that are living in the 400, 500, well, you're in New York, so maybe 100, $1 million homes. Where are they going to do? They're going to downgrade or maybe move into the lower asset class. What's our biggest shortage we have going on right now is affordable housing. What fits affordable housing beautifully is a mobile home park. So duplexes, quadruplexes, apartment complexes, mobile home parks. What are you buying when you buy a mobile home park? You're buying the land. Yeah, I don't want part. There's a term called a POH and TOH. POH is park owned homes. That means when you go to buy the park, you own that home. I don't want to own any homes. I want to own the land and I want to lease it back to the residents. TOH is tenant owned homes. I want to buy a park that is mostly tenant owned homes. Why? If somebody owns that home, they would tend to show more pride in ownership. And if you begin to gradually raise the rent because of the improvements you've done to the park, they're less likely to pick up and move. It's going to cost anywhere from $2,500 to pay maybe up to $5,000 to move a home. So if you're bumping rent by maybe $20 or $50 or $75 a month, the tendency would be for them to stay longer. Now, of course, out in California, what's the lot rent out in California? It ranges between, you can buy a mobile home out in California for $400,000 to $500,000. Are you really buying the home? You're buying the land. The land is very, very expensive out there. We'll talk about cap rates here in a moment as well. Florida, I can't touch a park in Florida, 4% cap rate. It's insane because you've got this mass influx of people coming in from New York and from California, and they're going to the beauty of the climate and the tax advantages of Florida, and those mobile home parks are pretty much out of reach. So while my home base is in Winter Park, Florida, my properties are in West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, Oklahoma, quite across the board. I've been investing up in North Dakota, and so I'm not afraid of investing outside of my backyard. The mobile homes themselves can be expensive to repair, but like I said before, I don't want to be fixing the doors, the drawers, and the hot water heaters. So this, for example, the most recent park that we picked up in West Virginia, I am selling back those homes to the existing residents. What? That's right. I want to sell. So if they're renting for, let's say, $600 a month, including lot rent, I want to sell it back to the resident, and then that drops down to my lot rent of wherever I am, $265 or $300 a month. I'd rather do that because I'm not getting phone calls in the middle of the night. What I may do is I may go into the park and I may fix potholes, fill the pothole up. I may replace one of the biggest things, replace the mailboxes. Because if you're getting a buy on a mobile home park, the prior owner may not have taken care of mailboxes or roads or potholes or playgrounds or picnic tables, things like that. You do basic improvement. My maximum out of pocket on the last mobile home park I picked up was $1,500. About, I don't know, $500 in road repair, $600 in mailboxes, a couple picnic tables, and then you walk in and you start notifying the people that there's new owners, and you go in and you start cleaning up. I have no. I don't have any permission whatsoever for drugs. If I find out, then I will evict them. I'll have them removed. If there's violence, I'll have violent offenders. I will give them a warning, and then I'll have them removed. And so if the residents see that you are genuinely care about the park, they will tend to weather a slight increase. So I'll give you a very specific example. I bought, and that was about an 8 cap. I bought an 8 cap. When I'm done, it's about 11 cap. Now it's a little bit more impressive, right? But that's outside of the area, and also in Kentucky, Louisville, Lexington. I have a criteria. I want to have a park that is within an MSA, which is called a metropolitan statistical area, better known as a population. I want a population of a minimum of 80,000 to 100,000 people. So that way, if I do have someone that has to move or has been requested to move, then I can fill that spot relatively quickly. So there's a lot of things I just threw at you in a short period of time. So the mobile home park, you're buying the land. Different people have different ways of buying and selling. My way is not the only way. I've been guided by some great mentors, and I prefer not to own the homes. Now you're just renting the land, and you've got your lowest attrition rate. I have little or no vacancies. I have little or no late rents. Maybe you're going to get 1 or 2 here, but they don't want to be late on their rent, because where else are they going to live for $265 a month? or $300 a month or $500 a month. So the last park we bought, I think the rent was about $170 for lot rent. After we improved the roads, mailboxes, picnic tables, we raised it like $75. Well, it's not enjoyable for the residents to see a rent increase. But if they see that you're improving the park and you're making it more livable and you're getting rid of the dogs that are getting into the trash, and you're getting rid of drug runners and you're getting rid of the back, and they see it improving, they won't squawk as much. They won't be, and we certainly don't want to hurt anybody, but are you really hurting anybody at a $265 a month rent? Whether you got Social Security or veterans, anybody out there, $265 is just a drop in the bucket. And so as an asset class, I like the part of low vacancy, low loss to lease, or you don't have people that are late on their rent. And now if I own all the homes, then you're going to be getting phone calls constantly for maintenance repairs, right? So that's the primary. Now I'll tell you about a very specific purchase, but I want to open up. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, so actually, Brian, so just to understand your kind of the thesis, like the main thesis, and you actually touched on like quite a few different points there, which was really great. But just to clarify, like for our audience as well. So you mentioned like about tenant-owned homes, like tenant-owned MH mobile home parks, and that's what you focus on, right? I believe, and so okay. So for the reason of not having to deal with the maintenance and kind of sell back to the tenants, like being able to sell back to the tenants the mobile home park itself, and sort of like just retain land rent, right? But you did mention, like, sounds like you have, I mean, you do have like a good hang, obviously, on executing your value out there at the same time with regards to improving the cap rate relative to this land or lot rent, right? So you can, so that's, you mentioned like roads and mailboxes and picnic tables, right? Are those like typical value add components? So once we're in the space of land rent, so to say, and not, you know, like dealing with all the repairs and actual, you know, like apartment rent or whatever. So, you know, it's quite an interesting thing. And like, what kind of percentage improvements in that you are typically able to achieve as far as like potential and kind of like being able to raise the value of the property and all that?
Great question. Okay, so I'll give you some very specific numbers. I acquired this park. You know what? Hi, Steve. I actually know some people in here. So I want to go right from step number one, because I bid $50,000 higher than the park was being asked for. What? You bid more than what they're asking? Well, wait a minute. If the numbers work, then I don't, the old adage, even from trading community, I don't care what the person in front of me made, and I don't care what the person behind me made, as long as the numbers make sense to me. So what happened was I called up on this park, and I kind of knew the broker, and I said, so I understand this is for, he goes, yeah, he says, we just closed bids the other day. I said, can I still put a bid in? He goes, yeah, he says, but they're bidding over asking price. I said, okay, well, he's certainly not going to tell me how much they're bidding. I'm going, I really wanted the park. So what I did is I put my closing date, what I was going to do on the terms, whether it was going to be a cash purchase, and I bid $50,000 over asking, and I got it. And then I almost fell over backwards. Well, why? Because the numbers worked where they were. Like I said, the rent was at 170. We bumped it to 265, and that takes a valuation of about an $850,000 acquisition. And you add it, you know, the overall valuation bumped up to about 1.15 million within 60 days. Now, obviously, you're not selling the park for that, but you're talking about valuations, because if you obviously want to buy at a higher cap rate and sell at a lower cap rate, and that could be in a whole nother course I could tell you about. But the idea is you buy at a higher cap rate, you come in, you fix it up, you're going to sell at a lower cap rate, and that gives you your increased valuation. Is that understandable, just on the basics of that? And then what I'll probably do, I don't know if any of my residents are watching.
Brent, when you say that, all you're saying is, you know, if you buy it at an above market cap, that's what you mean, and sort of sell at the market cap or via an improvement. Because
or what if you paid cap rate? What if you paid at market rate? Let's say you paid 6% cap rate. Well, it's all about, the first word I said was land. What you're buying the land and the location. So are you buying the land and location of a mobile home park right in the middle of a whole bunch of other mobile home parks? Valuation doesn't really get me jazzed up. But if you are buying a mobile home park right here and you're surrounded by like single family residentials around that area, I know I got a good deal. Why? Because you've got these average homes. You want to know where the 2-bedroom, 1-baths are selling. You want to know where they're renting. You want to know what a 3-bedroom, 2-bath is buying and selling at. That gives me the appreciation that I can see there. As long as I put the improvements into it, you should be, where else can you rent for $200, $300, $400 a month rent? It just doesn't exist that I'm aware of. If you do, you're in a really rough area. So if you buy a mobile home park in the middle of a residential community, you want a fairly decent residential community. You don't want to be buying, I don't want to say the slums, but I want to say in an area that maybe the people are not less likely to take care of their homes. And that's a fair statement. I want to buy in an area where there's pride and ownership. And so can the appreciation go up to, can you put it, what if I raise it from 265, another 75, I'm at what? Over $300. I've now increased my valuation by another $200,000, $300,000, or $400,000. So I could be a $1.4 million asset paying $850 in less than a 24-month period of time. But I'm not saying do that as a slumlord. You do that as actually putting a little bit of value into the property. So each park is going to have different improvements, accessories, like pools. They're very expensive to maintain, and you got high liability. A playground, as long as you get in there and make it safe for the children, you'll have less liability. A clubhouse, turn the clubhouse into a storage facility. I don't want people to get hurt. I don't want to be, sued in a frivolous lawsuit. So I want to keep it simple, clean, tenant owned. So I don't know if that's kind of a long answer to a short question. As we go up to a valuation of about 1.5 in 24 months, that's a pretty good investment.
Right. And that's, to clarify, let's say like the example that you gave for the mobile home park that was purchased at 800,000 and then kind of like quickly bumping up like the rents, right? So that was how many units, so to say, or like how many?
That was 40 units.
40 units. Okay. But then what is the leverage that you're able to get on that in terms of financing, right? Because I know like
great question.
Lesser units financing is a little harder. So how does that work? Yeah.
Right. Great question. As I said, I was a mortgage broker for 20 years. So I'm going, what's the sticking points? Well, I have a list of probably 70 different lenders that I would call and ask and find out what their appetite was for mobile home parks. Some banks simply will not touch a mobile home park. And for unknown reason, why would you not want to invest in? All day long, I'd invest in a mobile home park because your residents are going to stay. They're not going to move. They're relatively safe. As long as you get rid of the bad people and you got a caring manager who steps in and has a little bit of experience all day long. I take that over an apartment complex because you could have a mass exodus from your apartment complex. You're not going to have a mass exodus from your mobile home park. So, back to your question, I'm not sure how to.
Sorry, Brian, what was you can have a what relative to an apartment complex?
A mass exodus, for example, depending on where you buy it, location is critical. So for example, I was looking at one up just outside of Fort Knox, and my concern was if there was ever a rapid deployment, you're going to have a mass exodus, meaning a lot of single family households, they're going to move back with their parents if the soldiers are called up and gone off to a military conflict. And so you could literally, if you buy near I'm not a big proponent of student housing, but there's certain categories that are good for some investors. I personally just don't like it because now you're near a university. And what happens when you have a pandemic, as we had last year? Now all of a sudden your schools stop. You've got a mass exodus. I can't think of a better word to use, but they leave, and you got a lot of empty spaces. Right. And what do you do if it's a large college town? You could be dead in the water. It could be very painful. In a mobile home park, no problem filling the spots. Less than generally 7 to 14 days, I'll have the spots filled up. And your mobile home costs, I mean, a single family home is going to be about $119 across the country, $119 a square foot. A mobile home, even your newer ones that are running $80,000 to $150,000, $57 a square foot. And I'm still able to buy these mobile homes maybe between $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. You go in there, you do a little bit of minor improvements, you rent it out, and then you go back and you offer it back to them. The improper term, you can't necessarily use it as a lease option to purchase. It's more of a cash credit program. They both accomplish the same task. A lease option to purchase, you can't really do that because the mobile home is like considered a vehicle. So a cash credit program was every time you make a payment, I'm going to raise your rent a little bit, but that extra $100 or $200, I'm going to credit towards your purchase. And I give you 12 to 24 months to qualify. And now you come and you buy that home for me for, I don't know, maybe $7,000, $8,000, $9,000. And now you're more of a lifetime resident. The average lifespan of a person moving into a mobile home park is 14 years. So,
but just to clarify, like, since these are like TOH, like you mentioned, right? And you kind of sell them back to the tenants who are living there. And so in that sense, how does that factor into your, let's say, commercial investor value add that you're trying to realize in terms of like raising the rent levels or improving the NOI and kind of raising the property value? Or is it kind of like indirectly, okay, now it's just you have a better property and you just sell it at a bit higher price to those to the tenants, but it's not going to be already the income-based valuation, right? Because it's just the individual unit that they're purchasing.
Well, when you go to acquirers, and that's remind me, I did not answer your first question. The banks, I may have a handful of 5 out of a database of 70 that have a great appetite for mobile home parks. They love it. It's the lowest default of any other asset class aside from storage buildings, self-storage units. So what are they lending up to? They'll lend up to 80% loan to value, and sometimes they'll allow 10% seller held second. But you got to know that answer ahead of time. So talking to your lenders and making sure they'll be willing to back you. If you don't have any knowledge or experience, it's going to be really hard for a bank to release, $800,000 for your acquisition. And you're not going to believe this part. It's easier for me to borrow $1 or $2 million than it is for me to borrow 500 or 600,000. Because your asset is strong enough to hold that value. You get your appraisal that comes in. Your bankers are going to come in at, I can have more bankers want to come in and buy or invest with me $1 million than 600,000. It's like pulling teeth. They want a little bit bigger bang for their buck. So I can't talk too much. So the investors, it depends whether you have a debt partner or an equity partner. So if I have somebody that comes in and says, hey, Brian, I want to go in partners with you and I want to invest, $100,000. Well, do you want to be an equity partner or a debt partner? Well, let's clarify that. A debt partner says, you're giving me a loan and I pay you an interest rate of return on your money. That's a debt partner. An equity partner says, hey, you know what? You get a percentage of the park when it sells, or you get an annual distribution at the end of every 12 months. That's pretty cool. Now, you better have just a little bit of a reputation or a little bit of experience in doing how to do that. Otherwise, the investor is not going to open up his pocketbook and invest with you. So if you've got a little portfolio and say, hey, I bought this and sold this, even if you're starting with single family homes, you show that and you say, and you show a picture of before and after, now you're showing your credibility of being able to do that. Taking a home from this to this. You do the same thing with your investors. So what is it they want as a rate of return? Hey, some people want 6% annualized rate. Some people want 8, some people want 10. Some people won't touch you unless they're getting 20% of the pie. Well, they better be putting something else into it as well. They may want to become a board, on the board of directors. They may want to become a partner in the acquisition. I'm going to want to know that they're going over there and picking up garbage every once in a while, or some type of contribution, right? If you're going to get a higher rate of return. If they just want to sit back and watch the check show up into their account every month, then I put them in as maybe a joint venture partner in a land trust. And I may acquire most of the properties I buy in a land trust, or make them a member of your LLC. So I don't know if that answers your question in reference to the bankers will run up to 80%. In self-storage facilities, they'll go up to 90%. Right? That's your next wave of asset class coming up, because as everybody's kind of predicting an economic downturn, where are they going? They're downgrading a little bit. And when they do, what do you got? You're getting millennials coming up. They need a place to store their stuff. So that's going to be a very safe asset class to be investing in as well.
Interesting. But then you're saying, so let's say they would lend like to pretty high LTV of 80% and even give a second sometime, right? Even like a 10% second.
Allow a seller held second.
But that's kind of going to happen at a certain unit count or like certain value of the loan and so forth. So if you say, let's say like below 500,000, okay, it's like they don't give any loans or something like that. Is that the dynamic? I'm just trying to understand. And then you hit on.
Sure, yeah. And they have, I've created my own spreadsheet. It's taken many, many hours.
Okay,
Not going to share that with anybody. But what I want to do is I want to have a cash flow, a cash on cash return. I want a debt service ratio. If you're not sure of these terms that I'm using, ask me. I'll clarify what a debt service ratio is. That's what your income is percentage wise to your your debt, your income versus your debt. The banks want to see a DSI or debt service, DSCR, debt service credit ratio above, let's say, a higher, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. That means that the income at least covers their debt. That's a safety. They want to know what the cap rate is. Will they go for a 4% cap rate? If you can give them what's called a compensating factor. Hey, I'm going in at 4% cap rate, but I can tell you why, because I've got lakefront that's within walking distance, because I've got a great park, because I'm right in the middle of houses that are being sold for $500,000. You sell it to them, such as an underwriter, then they'll release their pocketbook. So sometimes I digress. I shoot off in different tangents, but I don't know if did I answer your question on that one?
I mean, so to say, like, do they get easier at lending once you hit a certain number of units? Let's say it's a 40 unit or something like that, or just a very high level. If you're trying to finance a 6-unit mobile home park, it's probably going to be pretty hard, I assume, right?
Well, if you're buying a 6-unit mobile home park, you better be getting a pretty good deal, and you're probably I would suggest you get that in with cash.
Yeah.
Because you're probably dealing. So how do I look to want to buy? I don't necessarily want to buy it from somebody that just bought and sold it last year. I want to see, the population is getting older. You've got a mom and pop who actually created that. That's their pride and joy. And they're getting older and they don't want to manage it anymore. That's the person I want to buy it from, because they know that I'm going to come in and I'm going to take care of their people that were there. That's their baby, right? So the same with I'm trying to remember what your question was, because I was thinking about when to buy a home.
Just on the financing, but I think you answered it very well, Brian. I think
the financing. I was going back. Okay, so the idea was the one park that I bought. I go back and they saw the improvements I had done over a 3-month period of time, and they said, find more. That's like a green light for me. That's like saying they want me to find another park, so they will put the money down on me, because they're so used to tire kickers, these people who come out of seminar graduates that don't really know. They want to try, but they don't really know how to do it. They need to partner in with somebody who has the knowledge and expertise. Then the bankers will open up their books. So there may be somebody who doesn't have any experience. It's going to be a little bit tougher for that lender to fund them. But if they're a strong enough mobile home, if their taste is strong enough for mobile home parks in their portfolio. I talked to one bank, they go, yeah, Brian, we got $20 million just set aside only for mobile home park investing. Love it, right? But I can't compete when we get up over 100 units. I can't compete with the big boys because they'll outbid me. I got outbid by $1 million on a park I was trying to buy in Florida. I had offer in at 2.5. The other person, big boys, came in and bought it at 3.5. And you could barely park one car in front of that home. And you couldn't move. There may be 20 feet between the two homes. That's how tight it was packed in.
And what kind of rates, Brian? So let's say on that 80% loan to value.
Wow. Yeah. You wouldn't believe I got a 4.25% on 80% on an acquisition of an $850,000 park.
Well, that's really nice. That's great.
Now, it certainly helps to have the background that I have, right? If you say, hey, I was a mortgage broker, they go, ooh. And they also like to know that you've got a decent rent management software. And I use Rent Manager. It takes a little while. I'm not an accountant, but once you learn how to use that software, the bankers like that. They know you're in it for the long haul. And then if they ask for a P&L, an updated P&L, you can fire it off in a matter of seconds and send it over to them. They like that. Background, duplexes, quadruplexes, single family homes. I can show them a portfolio. I've got their attention rather than somebody coming up for the first time and just saying, hey, I want to buy a park. So yeah, if you show a little bit of the fact that I have a couple mobile home parks, that is impressive to them and they will fund again. It's the time at which you've purchased them. So if I bought one in August and then I'm trying to buy 3 more now, they may raise their eyebrows a little bit. So I may need to spread that out to a couple other banks, but you always want to be transparent to the bank. Hey, I am getting financing from another one. If you try to do it and not tell them and they find out, then your name becomes dirt in the eyes of the bankers, and you don't ever want to be. You always want to be honorable. You always want to get your investors paid back. Above, at all costs, your investors get paid back, because you can get a bad reputation very quickly in this industry. I had another investor, he passed away, 87-year-old, loved the guy, former state trooper, former veteran. Great person. He passed away. But before I asked him, I said, if something were to happen to you, where would you like it to go? So I have him as called a successor beneficiary. Successor beneficiary would be if something happens to him, it goes to his grandson, because his son had already passed away. As long as I'm not mentioning names, it's okay. So it went to the grandson. So while I was sad that I was losing a friend and an investor, I was very happy to call a grandson who's just getting ready to go to college and say, your grandfather left you $100,000 that's invested. And I can wave the magic wand and release it from that invested and get you the money right now.
Yeah,
So that's what made me feel good
really
that, so cover. And then another thing is to have what's called a key man insurance policy. A key man insurance. If I'm the one running the show, what happens if I get taken out in a vehicle accident, or I'm no longer in existence? That key man insurance policy redesignates somebody else to pick up the reins and run with the ball that I've got, so that again, my investors get paid back.
Mm-hmm. Those are very good points there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And so a question on the chat we have is, so for someone who has no experience with mobile homes, what do you recommend is the first step to acquire a park?
That's a great question. If you've never done it before, I would certainly encourage you to take a mobile home course. Mobile Home University is a great mentor. Take a course on it, so you know the little ins and outs. You want to know the pitfalls. So today, what I wanted to tell everybody is, hey, when you go to buy a park, I don't care whether it's under contract or not. You just never take no for an answer and continue to follow up. Take the course, get the knowledge, get the education, or you partner in with somebody that has the knowledge and experience that you can learn from them. Now, when I bought my first apartment complex, I gave you can call him an angel investor, my partner, he got 70% of the deal, 75% of the deal. I wasn't real happy about it, but when in the end, I was so grateful for the knowledge that I learned, it was well worth it. If I go in partnership, generally, I go like 50-50 for the person. If they've got to be putting some into it. You don't just bring the park and all of a sudden go off into Neverland. You got to be able to contribute to that. Show up with me. I am not against being on the ground picking up garbage. I have been underneath double wide mobile homes when they start to pull them together. Have you? I've learned how they level them out. Have you? Right? So if you can answer those questions, and then you can convince the banker, now you've got a strong asset, and then you've learned totally worth the investment to go 50-50 with a partner that has the knowledge. Then you can take that off on your own and look for the other parks. Education. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that is Konstantin's question actually on the chat. So
another quick question. I wonder if you have any experience with rezoning vacant land, because currently I have a couple of acres in a residential area. I'm wondering, is it difficult? Is it possible to rezone it for mobile park and then just put mobile homes on it? Do you have any experience doing that? Is that
yes,
possible?
I do. Yes. Do not try to rezone in downtown Orlando, because I tried and I did. And as soon as you rezone, you all of a sudden have to fall all things back into, this is on a single family home. I tried to zone it commercial, and then all of your requirements go up to the current zoning requirements. Anyway, do I have experience? Yeah, like 3 long years. If you're trying to do basic land, like in other words, this one we bought had 10 acres, 5 acres had the mobile homes, but there's 5 acres of vacant land. The first thing you want to do is you want to go down to the county and find out what is allowed and not allowed, right? If you're inside of a city limit, they're generally not allowing any new mobile home park land to be developed, which I find fascinating, because if you've got an affordable housing shortage of homes, wouldn't you think that bringing in brand new homes in a brand new park would be impressive and increase the tax flow to the county or the city? So the first step would be contact the county and find out what their appetite is for allowing mobile home parks. Some of them won't even allow tiny homes. You've seen these tiny homes they're trying to develop, because the tiny homes, there's no storage. Next thing you know, the outside of the tiny homes all ends up looking like a trashy area. They don't take care of their homes. Mobile home parks the same. Mobile home parks have kind of a bad reputation of being rough areas where low income. Not necessarily. I mean, you've got your younger people that want to save some bucks, and they're moving into mobile home parks, brand new homes. I'm trying to think of, if you go to them with your cards stacked, what's it cost to remove the trees? What's it cost to tie into city water and city sewer, which is another requirement that I like to see in my investments. City water, city sewer. Or are you going to put in septic tanks and drain fields? Or do you have to tap into a well system? So if you have all these answers before you get to the county, then you'll get your answer pretty quickly. if is it customary to the area? In other words, are there other mobile home parks in the area? Then they may be inclined to go that way. If there's no mobile home parks, then you got a large opposition of the single family home residents because they think that it brings in lower quality people. Does that answer your question? In other words, you can do it. I don't see a whole lot of new parks being allowed, new land being permitted, but I know that there's a lot of existing land that maybe half of it is still zoned mobile homes. And then you got that other 5 that can fall into maybe a grandfather clause that can be also redeveloped. Either that or you buy individual parcels, buy the land. And this is what I did on up there in Chattanooga. I bought the land and then I subdivided it, but it was a prior mobile home park. But the fact was that there was no functioning single mobile home over 6 months. So as a result, it defers back to single family, and the county was not about to change it back to zoning for mobile homes. I said, how can I do this? You saw what I did with an apartment complex. How can I zone? They go, you've got to zone it as single family. What does that do? That increases the land allocation I have to do towards the home. So it cuts back on the amount of homes I can put there. So it's all up to the questions and answers you get back from the county. How can I make this work? So in that area, I had an additional 3 acres, and I took the acres, but the county requirement was 22,000 square feet per home. I'm going, wow, you just cut. I wanted to put 6 homes. I can now only put 3. So, but I did it, and I got double wide homes in there, and those are generating about $1,200 a month. So 3 homes, that's $3,600 a month when effectively the land was owned free and clear at that point. Long answer to a short question. Did that help you at all?
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate your answer. Thanks.
You're welcome. And you're welcome. Also, if you want, you can email Stefan, and get my phone number. I'd be happy to talk to you. I may not answer the phone right away, but I will return your phone call and I can answer questions directly if you like. Stefan's also got my email address that I think he's going to post out to everybody as well.
Yeah, I will connect. I will connect you guys after this. And so Richard is asking in the chat. So, what are your thoughts on focusing on perhaps a better paying clientele for an RV park instead of MHP, or a combination of tiny homes and/or glamping project?
Awesome. I'm gonna have to go back and read that question every once in a while to answer all of them. Okay. Personally, I'm not. I don't necessarily like RV parks because if I'm going to the bank and I'm trying to get money for that acquisition, what happens if they don't like your rent increases? They just pick up their RV and haul it away. Whereas when you've got a mobile home on site, it's got anchor tie downs, the tires have been removed, maybe the tongues have been removed. It's more than likely going to stay there as a permanent. Unless you're getting a bang up of a buy, I do not prefer to have RV parks. But you could have maybe partial mobile homes and partial RVs and slide the RVs to fill in the vacant spots for a short period of time. I don't mind doing that. I mean, I'm 58 years old, right? So I've done virtually all these asset classes and getting ready to spread off into the self-storage business as well. I like mobile home parks. The RVs, I like them, but to me, it's a little bit more manually intensive. In other words, I have the software where the people go to either Walmart and make a cash pay, or they go and they make the bank payment online. I never have to talk to the tenants. Once you've got that little education level up to the software, I don't have to talk to them anymore, which is great. If you've got an RV coming and going, or an RV coming in for maybe a month at a time, or maybe an RV that is there for 6 months, I still have that turnover. So to me, I'm not saying this is the right or wrong answer, but to me, an RV park is more labor intensive. Now, can you tag an RV park that is great location, great tourist area? I mean, we did actually look at those up in the, the Virginia hills, the Tennessee hills, because everybody was going up there. How many million? I don't have the exact number. Over 3 million people are traveling through that area a year. Not a bad idea, but then you have to pay the additional expense of maybe an on-site manager. That would be the difference on the RV park. Combination of tiny homes. I'm not a big proponent of tiny homes either. If you've ever been in one, they're cute, they're wow, they're awe. But you know what? Where do you put your Christmas tree at the end of the year? Where do you put your bikes? Where do you put your chairs? Even a mobile home's got storage underneath that mobile home, or it's got storage in a closet, or maybe a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, you can store it in a room. A tiny home doesn't have any storage. So then you're getting, what I see, and I've been to a lot of these tiny home parks, you go in there, there's your tiny home. It's cute. What's next to it? The storage building that's larger than the tiny home. That's where they store all their stuff. So I'm not a big proponent of tiny homes, plus the fact they can't store it anywhere. And then if you drive, this is what I'd say, drive into several of the tiny homes and in your head, redesign what you would do if you owned it. But when you go in there, you're going to see they have so much clutter around the outside. Even, was it the city of Mount Dora? I think Mount Dora, Florida, they will not allow tiny home parks. They just won't because of that fact. Combination of tiny homes. Again, I like the idea of a combination because I think you're spreading out your investment. You got some mobile homes. I want more mobile homes than anything, but you got maybe some RVs and maybe some tiny homes. I'm okay with that. Can you grab the tiny homes and make them into cutesy log homes and then Airbnb them out? Right? You can Airbnb them out. So now you got multiple streams of income. I like that. But the bottom line is when you're getting your money from the bank, they're going to lend you money based on the current income on the lot only. So, and you may have $40,000 mobile homes on there. They may give you $10,000 valuation for the home park. So now you go from maybe an 80% LTV down to a 70% LTV because they're not giving you the valuation what the current seller believes he's got with all park owned homes. Rewind that question a couple of times, that answer a couple of times, because they're going to lend you on lot rent only. If you try to rent it out as a park owned home, they're not going to give you any valuation for the rent because that tenant can be gone. If they own the home and that lot is going to continue to generate lot rent. Glamping projects. My former partner is also out into the glamping projects. Those seem to be quite profitable, but those are quite profitable in the good times. And we've gone through the good times, and we've also, if anybody has been investing through the 2008 to 2010 timeframe, which is exactly when I was a mortgage broker, you've got to be able to weather that. I think glamping projects may take a step back. So during it's just like the entertainment industry. In an economic downturn, you will tend to see the entertainment industry will tend to pull back, such as, like the Disneys and the Universal Studios. Florida's pretty weatherproof, but your glamping projects, I think it all depends on the reputation you have. Like, did you put a high quality glamping project together? Are they quite large igloo shapes? Are they teepees? I've seen some fantastic, and they're renting, $2,000 a night. I don't have any personal experience with glamping projects, but to me, it's too rich for my blood, and I'm a conservative investor. So does that answer your question there, Richard? Throw my emotions into everything on this.
Now, you did mention you're very bullish on or bullish on self-storage, right? And you want to kind of like expand into that.
Yeah, I'm going to look at, I'm going to go looking at three within the next week. I got 3 of them that have come on my radar screen. Yeah.
Right. So is that kind of like a trend you're seeing right now, or it's just, you just kind of like came around to that asset class at the current time, or is it something you've looked into in the past as well? Or
I briefly touched on that. The mobile home parks are now becoming more of an investor. It's much clearer to the investor community, right? The Wall Streeters and stuff like that. That's why I can't compete above 100 units, because these guys will come in and buy it at a 3.5% cap. Florida, I can't touch anything in Florida because they'll come in and buy it right out from underneath me, because they know that all they got to do is raise rent, and those tenants are not going to go anywhere. Or if they do, they can quickly fill it up. So it's the mobile home parks are becoming, there's like 44,000 mobile home parks. And maybe, I don't want to pull a percentage. There's a lot of parks out there. It's just that, how do you find them? You find them by finding brokers or not. So if they're becoming in higher demand, and you can't find them, and the purchase price, you wouldn't be able to touch the park we just bought in August for anything less than maybe 1.2 to 1.4 right now. You couldn't buy something like that. That's how much that they're going up per lot. So the self-storage buildings, I kind of like them because you're not having to deal with tenants. Well, they're storing it, but you're not having to deal with the emotions of tenants, toilets, trash, none of that stuff. So I like that investment. The only the red light on self-storage would be that you would have to have maybe an on-site manager. Now they're going to tell you, if you take any of these self-storage classes, they're going to tell you, oh no, we can have a kiosk there and you can put a card in there and that gets your door to open. But I think the investors in the higher end self-storage buildings, they want to know that somebody's going into that self-storage building every day, a manager. They want to know that somebody's on site to make sure that nobody climbs over the fence and breaks into their shed. Yeah, you can have police, you can have cameras and stuff like that, but I don't think anything really beats the self aspect. So you do have to manage the manager in a self-storage facility.
Mhm. And then let's say what would be the red lights to mobile home parks? So you mentioned just kind of like Wall Street coming into that space. And
there's a lot. There's a lot. I'm going to answer that one question in reference to California. But let me address the question first here.
Yeah.
I personally am not interested in California because of the taxes. I'm not interested in New York because of the taxes. In fact, a lot of my family is selling their stuff there, and they're actually working their way towards Florida as well. So I'm just not. That's just my own personal choice. California, I don't know. I would have to, if you said, hey, Brian, here's a park we found in California, I would certainly look at it. But what I want to know is what comparables are there to that park? In other words, let's just use a 50-unit park. Can you tell me that within maybe a 5-mile radius that there's a couple other 50-unit parks and where their lot rent is, right? Because I want to know, are we in an area where we can actually raise lot rents? Are we in an area that we're already maxed out? Are we in an area that may be depreciating? I don't know. So if you would buy a lot for mobile homes, what would you look for in California? My preferences is an MSA, which is called a metropolitan statistical area, or a population of over 80,000 people. And when I say an MSA, you can Google it, say MSA Los Angeles, and it'll tell you approximately how many people are within that metropolitan statistical area. So I want to have 80,000. Why? Because I can replace a vacancy very quickly. I would prefer to have public water, public sewer. I don't want to be, I really don't like the idea of a well system, because if that gets tainted in any way, you got a lot of lawsuits coming your way. The septic tanks, you got to be aware that you're going to need to get those things pumped. You got to make sure your drain fields. I just turned one down under contract, went through 30 days of due diligence, and I rejected it because the drain fields were all failing. That's why. And so I don't like septic tanks and drain fields, but I've bought with them. It just makes me nervous. What else am I looking for? I prefer to have paved roads. I was offered a couple parks up there in Panama City, but if there's 50% occupancy, my question is why? Why is there only 50% occupancy in a mobile home park in Panama City? Because it's Hurricane Alley, right? I mean, hurricanes hit there quite often. And I asked the seller, why is there only 50%? He goes, because the last 50% got either destroyed or removed or pushed into others with the storm. So I prefer not coastline properties either. So you got population. I like to be, you know what? I like to be within walking distance or maybe a 3-mile radius of a super Walmart. A super Walmart. So you've got the people that are maybe lesser income have a place to shop and they can walk, and they're going to be making your lot rent. Cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. I want the lot rent to be coming in. So I don't know if I answered your question in reference to California or not, but I buy a lot out in California. I'd have to see the comparables to make it worthwhile. If I see the other ones are lot rents at $500 or let's say $1,000 a month, and you're being able to buy a park at $500 a month, my first red flag is going to come off is why? Is it like known as a drug runner? What are the ages of the homes? Are they 60s and 70s? Do they need to all be painted and cleaned up? Am I getting 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2014s? So there's a lot of unknown factors. So some of the red flags in a mobile home park is, I remember being told, do not buy a park with a sewer lagoon. What's a sewer lagoon? I didn't know. So my other business partner, I looked at it and I go, no, we're not going to get it. He goes, we already bought it. Well, now I've got a little bit of a riff with my business partner. Why? Because it had a sewer lagoon. What is a sewer lagoon? It's basically, there's two types. There's one that's got like holding material underneath, and the sewer goes into that. And then when it fills up too much, the solids go to the bottom. Not a septic tank, a sewer lagoon, open water that I thought was a lake. No, that's a sewer lagoon. And then it gets too high, and then it runs off into the lower sewer area for kind of like a drain field. So sewer lagoons, no, because you got potential EPA issues. You got, and then what happened in that same park was when a tornado comes through, it fills it up, it goes over, and now that drain field area spills over into residential communities, and you got everybody up in arms, you got lawsuits coming away. So that's one of the red flags. I don't want a sewer lagoon. We talked about, I don't like the well system unless, I don't mind buying with a well system if I have the ability within a 6 to 12 month period of time to tie into the city water or city sewer. Sewer lagoons. Is it in a really rough area? I turned down several parks down there in Orangeburg, South Carolina. Why? loved it, read the brochure, got the due diligence. I'm ready to roll. I drive in there. If I feel unsafe when night falls, that's not a park I want to buy. If I see bullet casings at my feet, this is all true. If I see needles in the drainage ditch, so I've got to evaluate, can I get in here and can I clean this up? Can I get rid of the bad stuff? So you literally have to put boots on the ground and say, I like it, I don't like it. But the pitfalls again are, what's your surrounding environment? What kind of damage has been done? What can I improve to make the people feel confident to make their payments again? The age of the homes is the other thing. Any other red flags? Location, right? If you build it, they will come. And then if you show pride in ownership, you will have no problem keeping those lots filled. Because I know Steve's going to call me after this and he wants me to partner with him on that one he was looking at the other day. Okay.
And
did I answer all your questions?
I think you did. That was a great answer. That was a great answer. And another, so you mentioned like finding like how you find the deal, right? So let's say through brokers, or how does it work in finding the deal in mobile home parks compared to the other asset classes, or
Sure.
Is it?
There are multiple sources. I'll tell you the best source at the end. You can go to LoopNet, which is kind of a commercial environment to get started. You can go to Facebook Marketplace. That's a great place to find them, right? That's how I found one of the apartment complexes I bought. Go and just Google, how do I find mobile home? And next thing you know, these mobile home park brokers will be popping up on your screen. Sign up with all their lists, right? So you get these across your desk and just start putting together the numbers.
Just a moment. Facebook Marketplace or Facebook groups?
Facebook Marketplace.
Marketplace.
Yeah, you can do Marketplace. You can
buying and selling
both.
stuff. Yeah, sure.
My answer is both. But Facebook Marketplace, yeah, that's where we found this one. And never give up. This apartment complex that I just bought, I called the seller and I said, he goes, I've already got it under contract. I said, okay. I said, what's the holdup? He goes, he's waiting for his financing partner to come in from Europe. And I said, may I put a backup offer? And he says, well, this one's going to close. I said, but I wish I had $5 for everybody said they're waiting for their financing partner out of Europe, or their financing partner's on vacation. They're trying to flip that home or that apartment complex or that mobile home. They're trying to flip it, right? You just get used to the lingo. So he said, yes, you can put a backup contract. I said, okay, so when were you going to make a decision? Because by the 10th day of the month, if they haven't gotten the financing, then I'll cancel the contract and I'll go over to you. That's how I got that apartment complex. By not taking no for an answer, by putting your backup, well, I'm not going to waste my time and put a backup offer. Why not? It took you the time to what? Sign a contract? Why not? I'm living proof that that's what happened. How about this? You can't buy any homes. Steve will tell you this. You can't buy any homes for $37,000. I just did, like in November. $37,000, put about $17,000 into it. It's back on the market at $120,000. So never say never. So anyways, we got sign up with your brokers, go to your Facebook Marketplace, go to your Facebook groups, find these people that are talking about more, join your local real estate groups, right? Not everybody has an appetite for mobile home parks. So I don't care if you have to drive 1 or 2 hours away or 3 hours, go to those investor meetings. That's where you make your connections. Attend the seminars. It's like going to college and not paying for school. Pay for your education by going to some of these seminars and learn how the buy and sells, and who you bump elbows with is where you're going to learn that. Bumping elbows with, like, if you want to call me and talk to me, I'd be a great resource. I'll answer questions for you. I'm not going to charge you for that. Take me out to lunch or something like that. I'll answer all your questions. So what's the best place? You're not going to like my answer. I'm old school. You drive up and down the streets and you literally get out of your car and you go up to a home and you talk to the owners. I used to drive through and I saw a guy driving through with a MAGA hat, and I go, I'll bet that's the owner. And he was a former state trooper, and he was the owner. And I just started talking to him. Now, he wasn't interested in selling it to me, but you know what? I put a name with a face. I learned to practice my commentary to him. And then I realized what he was looking for, what he wasn't looking for. But at least if I ever call him again, I'm one of the few people that went face to face with this guy. And he genuinely liked me, right? Because I was sincere, transparent. I wasn't trying to pull the wool over. I wasn't trying to steal anything from him. I said, if you're ever interested, let me know. And I send a letter to him once every 2 months. Now, is he going to go with the new guy that sends? I've had these people and they go, I got this stack of papers from all these investors trying to buy my property. And they do, they'll come out with all these little colored flyers. While that's great, that speaks much louder and clearer to them, belly to belly. How are you doing? It's old school, but it works. It takes more work, but it works. It takes more work, but if you land one deal, totally worth it.
And
What are the
how do you
top
get
three?
like the lists? Like, do you use like what kind of lists you use of like for your off market, like you mentioned, like the direct mail part? It's in person, like speaking to the owner, like you said, that's the best, that if you're able to do that, right? But otherwise, how do you get like your marketing lists?
I don't actually have a marketing list.
Okay.
I drive the streets. I go, what area do I like? I like the Southeast region of the United States. I think the weather's good. I think the majority of people are moving to that Southeast region. I love the mountains, love the water. You've got all that within a distance. California is awesome. It's got the weather, it's got the distance, it's closer. I just think the taxes and the regulations out there are quite overboard. Okay. So it's not saying it's bad. There's certainly, if the numbers work, the deal will work, right? Where your taxes are. So I'm going to give you some surprises. That's a great question. Top 3 regulation, city, county surprises you come across. Are we limited on time?
We're good. We're good.
Okay.
Brian.
So the top 3 regulations, city, county. The number one that I did mention is can you develop with the land? Can you start putting mobile homes on it? There are some areas that you go to the county and they go, you can do it. You own the land, you can do whatever you want, right? I mean, they say that. If they say that, then you're good to go. If they say, no, it's no longer a mobile home park, you got to do a single family, then they limit you to 22,000 square feet, which just wiped out the ability to put 2 more homes in that same lot. So that's one. Taxes. Taxes are critical. That owner probably had it and he's at a certain tax base. And he may have bought it for, let's use round numbers. He paid $500,000 for it. And now he's selling it to you 10 years later for 1.5 million. Well, his tax base has been based on that 500,000 or the land appreciation. Now you go to buy it at 1.5 million. What happens? They go back and they reassess and you're going to get tagged with a large tax bill in that next, say, 6 to 12 months. So I had one property that it killed the deal based on the tax bump. The tax bump was currently in the due diligence. If there's terms that I use you're not familiar with, just ask. Due diligence is your inspection phase, right? You may want 30 to 45 days. You go in there and the taxes that I used was $6,000. When I went to the county to find out what the millage rate was and where the new calculation of a new purchase was, it was either $29,000 or $39,000. Use that as a calculation. When you're calculating where we are now, you better not get that tax surprise 6 to 12 months down the road of a $25,000 to $35,000 increase in taxes. That'll destroy your numbers. Any other regulations? The regulations, again, having open sewer lagoons, or what's another place that I had there, their sewer lagoon was the land with a whole bunch of stones. And then when it filled up, it would roll over to another area of a whole bunch of stones. Do you think there's an odor associated with that? And you think the neighbors are going to complain about that? So land, taxes, environmental issues, as long as those are covered, city water, city sewer is very important. So you're not violating EPA or environmental. Contact your county, talk to them. They're going to answer most of your questions. They'll make or break your deal for you. Rashka, did I answer all the questions?
And in what about investors, Brian? I know you mentioned like JV and like other, like, do you get like, do you do some of those as syndications and get investors for them as well?
A joint venture partnership is really great. I have
Besides
not had to
joint
do
venture. Yeah.
Yeah, I have not had to do a syndication. I'm very familiar with how they work. I've been involved with other partners on syndications. It's a lot of work. It's the legally proper way to do it. LLCs, you hire an attorney. If you're going to syndicate and you're bringing in over $1 million or whatever, 500,000, if you bring in more than 2 or 3 people and they're making money based on what you're doing, you better syndicate to protect yourself. You never, ever do anything illegal. However, if I buy in a land trust, a trust, just you say a living trust or a living will or whatever it is, but a land trust, I'm going to make an investor a joint venture partner. Now you are part owner. I would not have to syndicate because you're part owner. If you buy in an LLC, I would say maybe you're on a board of advisors or a board of directors. And if you are, then you're making a business effort in your monthly meeting, I'll say it again, they're making a business effort, and they are involved in the monthly business meetings, then you would not necessarily have to syndicate because they're part owners. So either they're part owners. If you take somebody else's money and you invest that into a project, you know, it's okay if it's like a mother, brother, sister, family members, okay. But anything more than that one person, or then you need to syndicate. And I would say, I'm not an attorney. I didn't give you my disclosure. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a broker. And always do things at what is legal. I would never suggest doing it, and never hiding money. It's never considered. When I do a land trust, it's not, it's called asset planning, estate planning purposes, not tax avoidance. You pay your taxes. In a joint venture partnership, you get your distribution and you're going to get a 1099. And when you do, you report that income. If you don't report your income, you're doing it illegal and you need to get arrested. Is that fair? So consult an attorney, create your own little team. You got an attorney, you got partners. Partners are tough, you know. Do you recommend buying empty land and start a mobile home park? How big minimum do you recommend? What are critical things? I personally am not a big proponent of buying and developing. I don't like it because what I want, and same with a banker, if you're bringing in cash and you're cash heavy, you may be able to do it. But the banks don't want you buying empty land because now you've got the additional expense of putting those mobile homes and moving them and getting them hooked up, city water, city sewer. You got all kinds of rules and regulations to get those in there. I prefer immediate cash flow. I want to see cash flow within at least a 3-month period of time, maybe 6 months. Why? Because I still got to pay my investors and I got to pay my debt service to the mortgage holder, right? What if I can't get a bank to fund a park, but I've got the experience? I'm going to end up paying 8 to 10% to those investors, minimum, right? So then my cash flow is weaker until I get those homes in there. So I personally do not want to develop land. If you want to do it, how big a minimum do you recommend? You know, go big or go home. The bigger, the better. I can't compete in the 100-unit or higher because I'm dealing with yes communities, or I'm dealing with, I got all the names written down of these big, they'll outbid me every time. So I like that 40 to 80 unit park. So if you're going to develop, if you're buying the land yourself, why not put 6 or 7 mobile homes on it? It's an immediate cash flow, right? So it's a broad question, and I'm not sure how to answer it if you're doing 6 or 60, you know? So, and you know what, there's a shortage of homes right now. So be lucky to grab, and if you do grab one, it may be smoke filled or maybe rat infested or something like that. So you got to be very careful with the ones you're trying to buy online. You go to see them, how many are available? I mean, everybody's chomping at the bit to get these mobile homes, to slide them in just to rent them out, because there's an affordable housing shortage. There's just not enough homes out there right now. Oh, another thing, I would suggest you attend the mobile home conferences when they come to your area, right? It's all who you bump into, who you know, learning. It's a learning process. It's not going to happen overnight.
And your
critical things when choosing land, I'm not afraid of slopes. You know, I have not purchased on a slope, but I've got investing partners who have, and I was a little bit nervous about it. Investing in slopes in Florida, okay. Investing in slopes in Georgia, okay. Investing in slopes in New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, no. Why? Snow. Why? Accidents, liabilities. You know, you got to think just outside the box a little bit as to what can and can't happen. You certainly don't want to be getting involved in lawsuits.
And so before we wrap up, like, Brian, so you mentioned like kind of your strategy, like you mentioned like very well, like some of your reasons for mobile home parks, and like there is like very there's kind of less turnover of tenants. It's very, whether it call it like business cycle resistance or like economy resistant, and like these people, they cannot go anywhere else, right? That's pretty much like the base, in a way that you know, gives like kind of a very stable revenue situation. And then like with regards to kind of like the maintenance side, like where you you know, you can be simply a land, renting out the land, right? You know, in improving that base, still raising the property valuation and all that. But would you say like your primary investment focus or strategy is like the cash flow itself, or is it more okay, being able to improve the revenue via in ways that you would also incur less maintenance and like the whole like profile of like the revenue volatility and all that? You know, is your focus holding those assets over the long run, or is your focus, okay, let's improve the DNY over 2 years and sell them?
Great question. That's a great question. Each park is going to have its own unique advantages and disadvantages. So if you go in and say, hey, I like this area for long-term investment, that would be one that's in the center of another residential community and you're not getting a whole lot of flack from the county. I like that investment. If you're also in a mobile home park, depends on where your buy point is, and surrounded by a whole bunch of other mobile home parks, maybe that's a pick, fix up, and flip. Each one's going to have its own unique criteria. Maybe it's a high drug area, and maybe there's a lot of vacant homes. And what's going to be the expense to go in and rehab those homes? If you're just uncomfortable and you know what, I'm just going to put the minimum amount of money into it, maybe raise rent a little bit, get the water cleaned up, get the trash cleaned up, and then flip it. Why would I do that? I would do that if it's in a little bit rougher area. That'd probably be a home I would, or a park I probably wouldn't even acquire. I wouldn't put a bid on it. But if you get it at the right price, you may be able to go in there and just clean things up and make just connect. I've been to parks where the tenants were coming out and say, can you at least help hook up our water line? I stopped and went over and helped them hook up their water line. I didn't get in. I didn't own the park. I was just looking to buy it. And she was grateful. Just show them a little bit of respect. They'll show you respect by making their rent payments. So each park stands on its own accord. You make the determination. And again, it depends on your age. If you're 27 years old, you may be buying a lot of these for the long haul. If you're 27 years old and broke, maybe you want to buy it and flip it to get some cash flow. If you're 58 years old, maybe you want to buy and hold, maybe you want to buy and hold, and you have your entrance strategies and your exit strategies. What's your exit strategy? I may hold for 3 years to sell. I may hold for long-term for 10 years. I may buy it because I'm going to develop the lower 5 acres. So it's not really an answer, but it's like each home is different, or each park that you acquire is going to be different.
Makes sense. And so do you guys have any more questions actually? So we Brian was really gracious with us today, answered a lot of different questions.
I'm not a very expressive guy, you know.
If you guys want to kind of ask perhaps the last question perhaps for the evening.
Man, you're not letting me off the hot seat, are you?
Okay. Well, so Brian, what is the best way for people to reach you? And or if they want to invest with you, how do they do that, and how do they reach?
And investors are going to be different, right? Some people are going to want to be equity partners. Some people want to be debt partners. Some people want to be getting into the syndications or the land trust. So that's just based on an individual basis where their risk tolerance is. Are they taking their money out of an IRA, retirement account? Are they just having cash on the side? Or do they want to be an active investor and go on site with me and do due diligence? So they can certainly reach me at brian@3pillarinvestments.com. That's BRIAN at the number 3 pillar, PILLAR investments with an S, plural.com. I'm not going to give my phone number over YouTube, but you're welcome to give my personal phone number out to them. Don't everybody inundate me at one time, so depending on when the YouTube video gets out, I may get some phone calls. I'm very transparent. I've got nothing to risk. I certainly enjoy partnerships with people, but I need to know that the person is honorable, willing to cover their own side and maybe get some of their own skin in the game as well.
Makes sense. So thank you for being here, Brian, today, and sharing all your knowledge with us. And so it was really great, and I really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone as well who joined us here today. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.